I remember that night like a wound carved into my bones. The living room wasn't just a room, it was a battlefield. Amber stood there smirking, the necklace I'd worked months of overtime to buy hanging around her neck. "Looks better on me anyway," she said, tilting her chin like royalty she never earned. "Amber, give it back, that's mine," I whispered, voice shaking. She shoved me so hard my back hit the wall. "You don't get it. Everything here belongs to me. Dad said so. Mom said so." Anger burned in my chest. For once, I didn't back down. I shoved her hand away. "You're not entitled to everything just because you're their favorite. I worked for that." That's when Dad stormed in, boots pounding against the floor, his face twisted with disgust, not at her, but at me. "Fighting with your sister again?" he barked. "I'm not fighting." She. "Shut up." His hand clamped around my arm and dragged me outside. Cold air hit my skin, dread sinking deep inside me. Amber trailed behind, laughing like she knew what was about to happen. By the woodpile sat a stack of bricks from his abandoned patio project. He picked one up without hesitation. My chest tightened. "Dad, please," I begged. "I didn't do anything." His eyes burned with cruel satisfaction. "You think you're equal to her, worth something?" The brick rose high above his head. "Let me show you what useless things deserve." The sound of it smashing into my knees is something I'll never forget, a sharp, sick crack that tore through my body. Pain exploded. I collapsed, screaming. Amber's laughter cut through the night. Mom appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, not shocked, not concerned. She smirked. "That's what useless things deserve. Broken things belong on the ground." I tried crawling away, but my legs refused. Dad hovered over me, brick still in hand, spitting near my face. "Now you'll remember your place." Amber crouched close, perfume choking me. "Guess you'll never walk right again. Perfect. Now you finally look as worthless as you are." I lay in the dirt, clutching my ruined knees, breath ragged. My family stood above me like predators circling prey, and as my cries bled into the night, no one came, no neighbors, no friends, just them, laughing, sneering, proud of what they had done. In that moment, through the blur of pain and betrayal, something inside me hardened. A seed took root, fed by humiliation and rage. They thought they'd shattered me, reduced me to nothing, but useless things can still cut deep. And right there, broken on the cold ground, I made a promise. One day, they would learn what it felt like to be worthless. The weeks that followed bled together in silence and pain. My knees throbbed with every movement, bruises fading from violent purple to sickly yellow. I dragged myself through the house like a ghost. Amber paraded past me, jingling the stolen necklace like a prize. Dad's eyes lit up whenever he saw my limp. Mom only muttered, "At least now you won't go around pretending you're something you're not." They thought my silence meant defeat, but I wasn't surrendering. I was calculating. In my cramped bedroom, the one they mocked as a closet, I listened. Every careless argument, every whispered phone call became fuel. I learned Dad was drowning in debt, desperate enough to forge documents under a neighbor's name. I heard Mom begging her sister for money while painting a picture of perfection. And Amber, their golden child, her grades were crumbling, her friends drifting away. She was far more fragile than she wanted anyone to believe. I took it all in, every weakness, every flaw. At night, when the house sank into darkness, I forced myself to stand. Each step was agony, every shuffle a nail driven into my knees, but I kept going. I clung to the walls, teaching myself to walk again. Each tortured step was a vow. They would see me rise. One evening, Dad slurred on the couch, boasting to Amber, "Real power is making people fear you." I stood in the hallway, nails digging into the doorframe, listening. His words didn't make me afraid, they gave me clarity. Fear was his weapon, silence was Mom's, cruelty was Amber's. Mine would be patience. I took a job at the library downtown, telling them it was for community service hours. They didn't question it, they didn't care. While they dismissed me, I was learning, filing records, tracing debts, studying the ways lies left trails. Day by day, I hid behind a mask, When Amber mocked my limp, I smiled faintly, like her words bounced off. When Mom complained about bills, I offered to take out the trash, pretending to obey. When Dad glared, I lowered my head. But inside, I was memorizing everything, every blind spot, every crack in their armor. They believed they had beaten me into silence. But my silence was the sharpest weapon I had. What they didn't realize was that their cruelty had created someone who no longer feared them. One night, staring at the cracked ceiling, I listened to Amber's laughter bleeding through the walls. My knee still ached under my hand, but my voice was steady when I whispered. They called me useless. They laughed while I bled, but when I'm finished, they'll beg for mercy they'll never get. And so the plan began, quiet, sharp, inevitable. The girl they tried to break was gone. What remained was someone far more dangerous, someone with nothing left to lose. The reckoning didn't come all at once. It came in pieces, domino by domino, until the whole house of cards caved in. It started with Amber. She flaunted herself like the family's crown jewel, sneering every chance she got. But I knew her secret: skipped classes, forged excuses, money drained on shopping sprees Dad couldn't afford. She thought no one saw. I did. So when she left her phone unattended, I slipped in the evidence: screenshots of failing grades, warnings from the school, photos of her sneaking out with boys Dad hated. I sent them to his phone from an anonymous account. That night, the house erupted. "You're supposed to be the future," Dad thundered, "and you're out there flunking like some gutter trash?" Amber sobbed, but no shield came. Mom tried to intervene, and Dad slammed the table, roaring, "Shut up, Linda, you spoiled her rotten. This is your fault." From my room, I listened, knees still aching, but the pain dulled by satisfaction. It was only the first strike. Next came Mom. Her words had always cut deeper than Dad's fists, poison hidden behind a sweet smile whenever outsiders were around. But I had her weakness too. The loan she begged from her sister, the one she never repaid. I had the emails, the promises, the humiliating pleas. I sent them off at just the right moment. By morning, her phone buzzed non-stop with furious calls. I heard her stammer, cry, spin excuses, and then the front door slammed open. My aunt stormed in, face flushed with rage. "You think you can humiliate me? You parade around while I cover your lies. Pay me back, now." Mom's mask finally cracked, her little kingdom of control slipped, and for the first time, I saw her cornered. She glared at me across the room, suspicion burning in her eyes. I lowered mine, limped past her like the obedient daughter she always wanted. Inside, I was smiling. But Dad, he was the final strike, the monster who brought that brick down on my knees, laughing as I crumbled, the one who whispered to Amber, "See, that's how you keep garbage in line." He thought he was untouchable, but his debts told another story. Through my work at the library, I found the forged papers. The neighbor whose name he used had already started asking questions. All it took was one carefully placed envelope slid under the right door. The morning the police arrived, Dad's face drained of color. He barked orders, shouted threats, but the officers didn't flinch as they read the charges: fraud, forgery, theft. His empire of fear collapsed in front of us all. Amber screamed, Mom wailed. And me, I stood at the top of the stairs, knees aching but strong enough to hold me upright. Dad's eyes found mine as they cuffed him. Suspicion flickered there, but he couldn't speak. For the first time, he was powerless. When they dragged him out, the silence that followed wasn't empty, it was justice. Amber spun on me, her face red and wet with tears. "This is your fault, you ruined everything." I stepped closer, my limp barely noticeable. My voice was steady, calm, sharp as glass. "No, Amber, he ruined himself. Mom ruined herself. And you were nothing but a spoiled brat mistaking cruelty for strength. I didn't break this family, I just revealed what was already broken." Mom collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. "We're ruined. Everything is gone." I looked at her for a long moment, then whispered the words she once spat at me, "That's what useless things deserve." Weeks passed, and the house became a hollow shell. Dad rotted in a cell, his name dragged through the mud. Mom became town gossip, her debts and hypocrisy exposed. Amber tried to cling to her friends, but one by one, they left her behind. And me, I walked into my own future. My knees carried scars, but they carried me. Each painful step was proof I had survived. Sometimes at night, I'd sit by the window, the cool air on my face. I'd remember the brick, the laughter, the cruelty, and I'd smile. Because they thought they had destroyed me. But in the end, I destroyed them, slowly, patiently, with truth sharper than any weapon. And no brick could ever compare.